there's so many layers to the franchise world.
Yes.
There's a lot of ways you can win in the industry, and I think to kind of summarize what we talked about, like we want to stay compliant, don't make false promises as a franchisor that you can't uphold, and as a franchisee, you definitely want to surround yourself with a good team of people, and do your due diligence before making an investment decision.
Yo, this is the Streetwise podcast, where we help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant, which means I help people find, launch, and build their ideal franchise business. My main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready, let's go. Streetwise Nation, we got Josh Goldberg with us today, attorney at law. Mr. Josh, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Appreciate you having me on, Matthew. Glad to be here.
Yeah, likewise. So tell the people, tell Streetwise Nation, what's your main focus? Like, what do you do? What's your day-to-day like?
So I'm a franchise and sports attorney located in Miami, Florida. Work across the spectrum, both on the franchisor side with brands of all different sizes, as well as with franchisees, helping them review different franchise investment opportunities. And then on the sports legal side, I work across professional and college sports, heavily in the NIL space, working with collectives in the new name, image, and likeness age that we're in, helping facilitate deals for college athletes, as well as working with professional athletes to review different brand deals, as well as opportunities in the business world.
Super interesting. So from my understanding, when individuals go into law school, they basically study a broad scope of law. And then whenever they graduate, then they get to pick which specialty they go into. Is that right?
Yeah, you don't really specialize in anything in law school. And I think it's pretty rare that when you're talking to other classmates and friends, like a lot of people don't know what kind of law they want to practice. Okay. People are still trying to figure it out, and that's pretty normal. But I think you're kind of going to law school, get a well-rounded education to be able to learn multiple areas of law. Then you're really learning on the job as an attorney, a specific niche. And the more years you have practicing, you kind of carve out that niche even more and just really can hone in on those legal skills.
Super interesting. So for your journey, how did you decide? I mean, I listen to you and I hear sports legal, you work with NIL, image and likeness for college athletes, and I'm sure there's even more that goes into that. And then you've got the franchising side and helping the franchisees, helping franchisors. How did you decide which path that you were going to go down?
Yeah, the franchise side I kind of fell into. I didn't know franchising was an area of law. Like ourselves as consumers first, I think like you can drive down the street and just like when you're going down the street nowadays, almost everything is a franchise. Like unfortunately, like
Facts.
a lot of mom and pops, it's difficult to compete with the big boys out there. And whether it's restaurants, gyms, medical spas, it's really just takes up all of our daily lives. And it's great for people that are looking to get into the franchising space from the franchisee perspective. Like you realize that you can go out there and start a brand that already has some name recognition built into it. And that's why when you're driving down the street, whether it's in South Florida and Miami, Fort Lauderdale, or go up to Alabama, Georgia, it's a lot of the same concepts, but that is the draw of the franchise world is getting the same Chick-fil-A sandwich in Miami that you can get in Alabama. So
sure.
I think we all know what franchises are, but again, from the legal side, I didn't know that was a niche area of law. And funny enough, I was just on Twitter, being active as I am on social media, and saw my former boss, who is a franchise attorney, post on Twitter that he was looking for a legal intern for the semester. And I direct messaged him, and that's just the name of the game today in social media. Like you make a lot of connections through social media. And I reached out on social media and ended up landing an internship in law school with him. Adam Walsh, who's a franchise attorney. I believe his Twitter handle is The Franchise Attorney. So I was able to learn a lot
Nice.
working with him, and um, fell into this niche area of law that is very business oriented, which is my background. And I think as you work with franchisors that are either starting out and emerging, you're helping different brand owners navigate all the legal complexities, not just the franchise space, which is very strict and you want to follow all the guidance from the franchise law perspective, but also just normal everyday business legal applications that pop up while you're running a business.
Sure. So you fell into the franchising side. So was the sports aspect of it, was that more planned? That was the intended path initially?
Yeah, so fell into the franchise legal side of things, and part of falling into it and falling in love with the franchise side is I saw the correlation to sports. So you see that these former professional athletes, people like Shaquille O'Neal, Junior Bridgman, Jamal Mashburn, have all built up large franchise investment portfolios. And once I fell into the franchise legal side, I was like, wow, like this could be a really interesting area of law to really learn so that I can help athletes that are looking to get into the space. So I was already working with athletes on the business side throughout law school. I launched my media and marketing company, helping professional athletes manage their social media channels, taking photographs, videos, social content, helping athletes build their own personal brands on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Um, and I think nowadays every athlete has their own personal brand, and more so than just them playing professional sports, which is their job. You're able to leverage that celebrity around you to then find other business ventures. So that's kind of been the crossover between sports and franchising. I knew I wanted to be on the sports side. And falling into the franchise side, I kind of maybe I made this little puzzle in my head to connect all the pieces, but it worked out where I was like, hey, like these are my two passions. I'll be able to combine both franchising and sports, be able to put all the pieces together to then help athletes that are looking to get into the franchise game.
Oh, I love that, man. I love being able to build out kind of a hybrid approach to pursue something that you're passionate about, but also to see the gap in a space to where your unique perspective can kind of fill that hole. What do you think most college athletes miss out on when it comes to the whole NIL thing? I mean, that was not present when I was in college, and I feel like I wasn't in college that long ago. Time does fly. But the whole NIL space, I mean, it just seems kind of nuts right now from the outside looking in. I can only imagine as a high school athlete preparing to get access to NIL and all the money that's there or not there for them and what they need to do to prepare. So where do most people kind of miss out when it comes to preparation for that NIL life and exposure and also the opportunity? What are some unknown unknowns that people just don't even know as they're walking into the NIL world?
Yeah, I mean, like you said before, like it's a whole new area and opportunity for college athletes the past 3 years now to finally be able to monetize their name, image, and likeness. Unfortunately, in the past, college athletes were restricted from being able to go out there and do a Dunkin' Donuts commercial or get paid by Gatorade, which has led to a lot of lawsuits, which is now creating all this change in the college atmosphere. So I think there's more and more lawsuits that are playing out right now that are all about putting the money back in the college athletes' pockets. There's clearly a lot of money being made at the college sports level, especially football and college men's and women's basketball. You can see all the TV dollars that are attached to these massive broadcast contracts, and right now the players aren't getting a cut of any of that. But right now, college athletes can make money through doing marketing deals, basically, which is nothing new. Pro athletes have been doing it for over a century, really. A lot of the ways that college athletes have been able to leverage their name, image, and likeness has been through autograph signings, being able to sign trading card deals, go do appearances on campus where you're doing meets and greets with fans, signing footballs, basketballs, maybe some jerseys. You can sell your own merchandise. There's a lot of ways for a college athlete to now leverage their fame and notoriety on a college campus to go out there and make some more money, which is what I like to call true NIL, where you're providing value, whether it's to a fan or to a business to go market that business. So there's definitely an exchange of money for providing a service. That athlete may go post to their Instagram or Twitter, like, hey, you should go check out this ice cream shop on campus, go give them a try. And a lot more people are going to go and try that ice cream shop on campus. So there's a win-win for everyone there. The college athlete getting paid more business flowing into the establishment. And then there's the other kind of NIL, which is developed over the past 3 years, which uh, is what collectives, which are basically a group of boosters, alumni of a university pooling together money to go out there and pay college players for the rights to their name, image, and likeness, where again, these players are providing a service to the collective. They're providing services, posting to Instagram, showing up to different events. Uh, there's a lot of critics out there of like, what is true NIL versus collective NIL? Is this really just pay for play? And it's really hard to say like what the real monetary value a college athlete is providing to the university. But there is like a difference in whether an athlete goes out there and posts a commercial on their social media saying, hey, go support our local restaurant. They're doing this deal every Tuesday, and if you mention my name at the restaurant, it's like half off drinks or something like that. That's providing real value for a business, and that in my mind is true NIL. On the other side of things is the collective NIL, which can be argued, is it really true NIL or not? Either way, the college athletes are making enormous amounts of money for the university. So the game that we're in now in this NIL world is just getting the athletes paid as much as they deserve, since they're generating a lot of money for the campuses. So it's been a mix of both. You got the marketing NIL and then collective NIL, and players are able to capitalize on that.
Super interesting. So do you find that first, a certain type of industry works better for athletes to create advertising value for? Like you mentioned Dunkin' Donuts before. I mean, would a Dunkin' Donuts value more than, say, a service business, whether that's a mosquito concept or a paint business or a window type of a window replacement style of business? Do you find that one industry works better than another when it comes to athletes coming in and getting those NIL funds?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different opportunities for college athletes. And when you're structuring a deal from the athlete side, you want to make sure that you're promoting a brand that aligns with your values. If a college athlete has no interest in a mosquito business, is that going to make sense for either side? Not really. But if an athlete loves drinking coffee every morning, it may make sense for them to partner with a Dunkin' Donuts or a different coffee shop, whether it's a franchise or a non-franchise concept, because it makes sense. It's part of the athlete's daily routine. It's a true partnership where the athlete's going to be more invested in providing value for the brand, and the brand is going to see a more real result from it when an athlete actually loves the product or service that they're marketing to the public. So I think you can look at examples even of others that have had success working with college athletes. You have Walk-Ons, the big sports bar that's co-owned by Drew Brees. They've done some NIL deals with college football Walk-Ons, which makes sense with the namesake of the brand, and that's a win-win for everyone. And then you have other service-based companies, like you have College Hunks Moving Junk, the moving company, which regularly hires college students to actually be the workers that are helping people move in and out of their homes. And I think they have some other current and former athletes that are franchisees in their system. So that is also something that aligns with, hey, maybe if you're a college athlete in the off season, if you're trying to make some more money, that you can go take on a job by being a mover for College Hunks. So I think there's deals that could work where it makes sense for both sides, and it's just a win-win for everyone.
Do you find that these athletes have a better shot of getting paid when dealing with the franchisees at that franchisee level, or actually dealing with the franchisors, whether that's their marketing department? Like where do they reach out to first in order to get the most bang for their buck?
I think that's a great question. And the franchisor level, obviously the franchisors have a much bigger marketing budget, and they're making the bigger decisions depending on how big a brand is. If you're a brand that when we go turn on college football on a Saturday and we're seeing television commercial, which that brand is paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to air that commercial during a primetime college football game, obviously they're putting big money behind it, and all the franchisees are buying into the advertising fund, and they're paying into the system and trusting the franchisor to go out there and market the concept correctly. So uh, if you're a college athlete, you're big enough where you have a following and you have the notoriety, obviously you want to go after the franchisor level and try to strike a deal that could be bigger. But also on the franchisee side, you have to think most franchise agreements and franchise concepts require a local marketing budget where the franchisee is pretty flexible to spend whatever amount of money that it could be a minimum amount that they have to spend every month on their local marketing efforts. So I've seen some instances of local franchisee concepts that are already required to spend a few $1,000s a month on local marketing, where it could make sense to go pay a college athlete a couple $100s or $1,000 to go post to social media. And if that could be a good use of marketing the concept locally, especially if that concept is located around a college campus, has a built-in customer base of college students, then it almost makes perfect sense to go partner with college athletes to go market the concept.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because I've seen, in franchising, there's a thing that, the concept of it being a proven business model, but you got to be careful sometimes because it might be proven in one area and it might work really well. And I just had another attorney on who was talking about, he gave an example of a restaurant concept that's right across the street from a college campus and it's doing amazing. That same business model might not do as well in an area that doesn't have a college campus right across the street. And I think if you have that, you can use it to your benefit, to leverage, and you can definitely use that in your favor. Something that I thought was an interesting concept that I have all these bright ideas, but I haven't necessarily seen them play out yet. Maybe you can educate me on this space. But we're talking about NAL, we're talking about college athletes, but we're talking about it from the advertising and marketing perspective. Have you ever seen, or has it happened where these college athletes can actually get ownership in an organization as a franchisee and actually have, their own Dunkin' Donuts location or XYZ? There's so many different industries out there in franchising. I won't list them all, but have you seen anything like that? Have you seen college athletes be able to use their funds that they generate as an NIL participant in order to then go acquire franchise territories? Like, enlighten me.
Yeah, I haven't seen any specific deals yet where a college athlete is opening up their own franchise. I think obviously you're a student, you're 21, 22 years old, probably pretty difficult to run a business at the same time of being a student. But I think this is a perfect opportunity where if you can establish a relationship with a brand and a brand is already paying you marketing dollars to go advertise and post for them, to build that relationship where, hey, like if whether you make it to the pros or not, that relationship is there for that. Whether you want to go open a concept once you graduate college or 3-4 years down the line, that you have that built-in network through the franchisor that they'll help you get set up on the franchisee side. So I think that there probably are some college athletes out there that are entrepreneurial thinking and trying to leverage their network while in college, and being able to leverage not just the traditional brand marketing dollars that, yes, you can get paid now and you want to get paid now, uh, but thinking bigger picture, leveraging the relationships that you can build with these franchise companies to potentially build even more wealth post playing career, whether your career ends after college or if you fortunately can make it to the pros and continue to build wealth as a pro athlete. But even after you retire from the pros, and just thinking long term, hey, it may make sense for me to go into franchising, and this could be a path for me to diversify my income to continue to build in the future.
Yeah, I can only imagine that there's a college athlete out there. Maybe he goes to, or she goes to Rice, or Stanford and or UT is involved in the business school. Maybe they go to a D1 AA school in a college town and they're super well known. Maybe they're an All-American at their school, but going to the next level just isn't in the cards for them. But they're so well known in that local area and they want to open a business. And I can only imagine that it could be a good opportunity, especially thinking about myself. I mean, we opened our first franchise. I was 25, going on 26 years old, and had a chance to go get my MBA. But my dad was in the process of retiring from Apple Computer, bought the franchise, and then put me in charge of it at 25, 26. And so here I am trying to figure this out. And I was on the ground building it. And it was just such a huge an amazing education for me on entrepreneurship and on business ownership. And I get it's a little out of the box because not very many young, low to mid 20s are in that space to grow. But I just think there's a lot of opportunity there that I don't know if it's getting tapped into yet.
No, definitely. And I think they're, especially if you're a college athlete that is not in the position to go play professionally,
Sure.
it's really, it's leveraging these NIL opportunities, or maybe you don't even have the following to really get the NIL opportunities, but in the off season, you may be working at a local restaurant just to make some extra money, and that restaurant may also be a franchise concept. And a lot of franchises that are looking at prospective franchisees are looking for people with experience, like especially the bigger brands. Like they're not just going to accept any franchisee into the concept. They want to know.
Sure. They should not. Yeah, they
Yeah,
shouldn't.
it's a big risk. So I think there's a benefit where if you're a college athlete and you've even in high school worked at a food concept, or in college in the off season worked at a fast food concept, like for instance, Chick-fil-A, like most of the operators they choose, like you also have had to have worked at a Chick-fil-A yourself. It's not just some random person that can just
Yep.
walk off the street and say, hey, I want to buy a Chick-fil-A. And I mean, I think one of the best examples of it is the Junior Bridgman story, who uh,
Okay.
six-man NBA player in the 1970s and 80s, who back then you were not making $250 million max NBA contracts, and in the offseason he was working the drive-through at Wendy's. Uh, like what are the like I
Wow.
think you'd be shell shocked if you drove down the street now and saw any NBA player for fun, just to learn the inside and out of a business to be working the drive through. But he was very entrepreneurial minded, and he wanted to understand how a business was run, and he put the apron on, learned how the day to day was, and that helped to give him the foresight to really scale to multiple locations and buy into multiple concepts. And I think that it would be amazing if you saw a college athlete in today's world take a proactive approach to really think long term like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see it in the future.
No, I love that, man, and that's a big reason why I created this platform to speak into the younger individuals, the guys that they got big dreams, but they don't necessarily know how to create them and how to build those building blocks. I talked to a few professional athletes, that people that are currently in the NFL, and I find that, or just retired from the NFL, and I find that the big play after retirement is real estate. Do you find that there's kind of inherently a cultural adversity to going into business ownership in the sense of acquiring franchise or any other business opportunity instead of doing the whole real estate thing? Why is real estate so poppin' where maybe franchising or other types of business ownership is a little less popular?
Yeah, I think real estate's probably the number one thing that I hear from athletes that are when you ask, hey, like what type of alternate investments do you want to diversify in? And that's usually number one is real estate. And I think that's because it's the most tangible. Whether you're
Okay.
buying a residential or a commercial property, you can rent it out and you can see it cash flowing uh, month to month, just with money coming in. And it's an actual asset that you can see, and it's like you have it, it's in your hands, it can go up in value and you can sell it. Obviously, real estate has its inherent risk as well, like any other business investment. Uh, but I think franchising an interest to athletes, but it's definitely more hands on. I think some athletes are
Right.
just potential franchise investors in general, they're looking for a concept where they can be an absentee owner. And honestly, in my opinion, there's really no such thing as absentee ownership. If you want the business to succeed and do really well, you're going to want to be hands-on in that business and not just leave it to a friend, a family member to run, which is when things go south. So I think some athletes are wary of the franchise business just because you do hear some horror stories of just people putting their money into a concept and losing it all. And a lot of the times that's just mostly because they thought the business could be run as an absentee owner and was just entrusting the wrong people to run the day-to-day operations. But I think franchising can be extremely lucrative if you build the right team of people and if you go into it thinking that, hey, like I'm going to be hands-on with this, whether you start as a current player and you're setting yourselves up for post-career, or if you are retired and you have the time on your hands to dive into it and be the full on hand day-to-day owner. I think you got to embrace it and really think, hey, this isn't going to be passive, but if I am hands-on with this and build out a team that I can scale this and make a lot of money doing it.
Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building. Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure, and it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I know what it means to struggle. I know what it means to build a team. If you're ready to get off of zero, if you're ready to build something for yourself, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's get the conversation started. Don't wait until tomorrow to build your future. It starts today. Streetwise franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode. The huge part is building out that team. I think you hit that right on the nose. And franchise ownership cannot be passive, especially when you're launching any type of business. You got to be involved in the process and making sure that the people that you are bringing on fit the culture that you want to create as the investor. And but I'm curious, man, because I've seen athletes do it well. I mean, you said Drew Brees, Shaquille O'Neal, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, like even he's not an athlete, but Rick Ross, and Wingstop. Like you hear all these stories about people, celebrities, whether they're athletes or musicians, that they're investing in these businesses. I have a hard time believing, Drew Brees actually came in and operated his location. What's the difference? Like, why are they able to be successful at that particular level, and maybe the average franchise investor isn't going to be successful at a different level?
Yeah, I think like we said before, if you're an athlete, it's building the right team of people behind you and around you. Someone like Drew Brees, I believe he is partnered with two of his other college teammates from Purdue who already had a good amount of experience in the franchise space while Drew's career was taking off in the NFL. He stayed in touch with his former Purdue teammates who were making other business ventures, and it made sense for them to all team up on the business side. But I think it's building the right team of people. Like if you're a current athlete or if you're a former retired athlete, you're not going to be able to run the business yourself, especially if you're trying to scale to multiple locations and running different brands. I think there is the opportunity where if you're a current athlete if you find the right multi-unit ownership group that has shown that they can scale a concept or two and has proven that they can do it, it gives you a little more peace of mind than just being an athlete and signing a 10-unit deal and trying to figure it out on your own and put together a group of people and try to go open every concept by yourself. But it makes a little more sense if you can go partner with some people that have already opened a few territories if a concept can show that, and maybe those people will help you learn the ropes of really like what franchising is, and they understand the value you bring as an athlete to the table, not just from the notoriety standpoint, but I think part of an athlete, if you're at the pro level and being successful, is that you're usually going to be a really good team player. And I think there's a lot to add on the business side with bringing new ideas and innovations and also being able to lead the team forward and figure out as you guys scale the brand how to resolve different issues and continue to build more concepts.
Love it. Again, it all comes back to the team and the people that you put around you. Who's in your room? Who's in your circle? Who are you trusting? Where are you putting your money? How are you investigating the actual business itself? And does it fit your values and the values that you want to build towards? That's great, man. I saw one of your recent posts talking about the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, and, being in the franchising space, I hear about the FTC and its increasing involvement in the way that franchising in general is run. What do people need to be aware of? Like, what is the Federal Trade Commission? What is its involvement in franchising, in the way that businesses kind of operate and move forward?
Yeah, so the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is a government uh, entity that basically puts out the franchise rule that governs how franchisors have to operate in the space. It's very similar to following different securities laws and how you're allowed to sell a franchise. So that's why franchisors have to issue a franchise disclosure document, and there's the 14-day period uh, that you have to disclose and sign. And you can't make disclosures out that are not also included in the document. So you can't go out there as a franchisor and falsely promise to a prospective franchisee, hey, if you uh, come join our concept, you're going to be a millionaire. Look at all this money that all these franchisees are making, and then go show some numbers that are also not included in the franchise disclosure document. So any material disclosures, financial disclosures that are being sold to a prospective franchisee, they one all have to be accurate, but they also have to be included in the franchise disclosure document. You can't be sending out any performas or other financial info that's not also disclosed in the franchise disclosure document. So the FTC governs everything that needs to be included in the franchise disclosure document, the rules of what you need to follow as a franchisor. There's also many other guidelines that the FTC issues around false advertising and unfair and deceptive trade practices, which all kind of ties into franchising. So again, this is how you advertise your business. If you're paying social media influencers to promote your business, them disclosing that they're materially connected to the business so that you're not being duped as a consumer of what you see on social media. So the FTC, that they have the power to go after franchisors that are not complying with the FTC's franchise rule, and they can hit you with a different fine. They can basically impose penalties on you that will not allow you to sell your franchise unless you comply with their rule. If you have been breaking any laws or regulations. And yeah, you don't want to get cut in the crosshairs of the FTC. It's going to be very expensive on the legal side to defend any action that the FTC brings against you. So it's definitely better to be proactive, hire the right franchise counsel up front to make sure that you're following all the FTC guidelines, and that when you are selling your franchise business, that you're selling within the rules that the FTC allows and not going outside the scope of that.
Where, and maybe you have seen this, maybe you haven't, but where does the FTC get notified, or where does their radar turn on and they start paying attention to one concept versus another? What are they looking for? Does somebody have to reach out and start, throwing red flags and just spouting out and speaking about bad experiences? Or are there other ways that the FTC is able to kind of investigate and look into a brand before it gets that far?
Yeah, consumers can always file consumer complaints to the FTC or to like the state attorney general of the state and bring something to their attention. So it could just take one upset franchisee or someone that
Wow.
is that to really bring it to their attention. You also have to think that in about half the states that require state registrations for franchise disclosure documents, that's all going through like the securities division usually of that state and up the ladder to the attorney general. So if there's any laws being violated, or if you're selling a franchise in a state where you don't have the proper state registration, which is a big no, that's going to get called to the attention not just of the state attorney general of where you're selling a franchise without the proper registration, but could also loop in the federal government of the FTC to hone in on a brand to really crack down. And then also, like I said, it could just be from a disgruntled franchisee, whether they contact the FTC directly, or if they file a lawsuit. That's going to be on everyone's radars as lawsuits are public. Um, if enough franchisees are filing lawsuits where the allegations are surrounding breaking different FTC franchise rules, that's going to bring it right to their attention. They may decide to also bring an action against the franchisor.
Super interesting. What are some of those? Maybe give me some examples of a franchisor breaking some of those rules. I mean, I recently had a franchise attorney on, and he made a comment directed towards it's not illegal to be incompetent, and a franchisor can offer support, but if the support's not any good, that's technically not illegal. So what are, other than franchisors cannot make earnings claims that are not inside of the item 19, which is a part of the FDD, franchise disclosure document, what are some other things that are big no-nos that, you know, if a franchisor is doing it, franchisees need to be aware of, and franchisors as well, because they might get in trouble with the FTC?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the bigger things is leaving things out of the franchise disclosure document that are supposed to be disclosed. So you have item 3 and item 4, which needs to disclose any bankruptcies or pending or closed legal actions against the franchisor, its affiliates, or any of the business executives that are listed in item 2 of the franchise disclosure document. A lot of times brands will try to exclude a full and exhaustive list in item 3 and 4 of litigation and bankruptcy history, which that all needs to be included for the past 10 years. So I don't, when I'm reviewing a franchise disclosure document and franchise agreement for a prospective franchisee, I'm also doing a separate search and not relying on that document to go search on Pacer, or there's other databases that include all lawsuits in federal and state courts to see if there's any lawsuits that should have been disclosed. And a lot of times we see stuff that was not disclosed and should have been. So it's good to be proactive from the perspective of, hey, a franchisee signs on to a brand and they were relying on the franchise disclosure document, and their mind could have been way different. If you knew that there was 5 lawsuits that weren't disclosed in the document, you may have not bought into that brand. So
Sure.
that can catch a brand in hot water if they're not disclosing any lawsuits, bankruptcies properly, as that definitely will change the consumer's mind if they should go invest in that brand. From, like you said, the financial disclosures that can obviously, if you lied about the numbers that franchises are making, that can catch you in hot water. Item 7, the startup costs for a brand, that's a little difficult area just because of the rise of cost to start up a brand. Like everything's getting more expensive now, but you want those
Sure.
numbers to be pretty accurate. If you're telling a prospective franchisee that, hey, like it's going to cost between $350,000 to $500,000 to start this concept, and ends up costing $1 million, like that's way off in your evaluation, and there's no reason that the numbers should be so such a big discrepancy. So that can catch a franchisor in hot water. But yeah, making any other false material disclosures that someone relies on and buys into the brand, thinking that they're going to make X amount of money, and it's just not the case.
So if I'm in the mindset of a franchisee that might have found themselves in a situation in any of those, I mean, I hear about brands that, yeah, the item 7, which talks about the investment level going into a franchise. You know, post COVID, those investment costs and construction costs have skyrocketed sometimes, and so a brand might not, they might not know exactly, and they give you a range, and it might exceed that range. But there's other times that it's egregious. There might be situations where that item 19 might be going to fabricate it a little bit, or the item 3 in what you're talking about, where litigations and bankruptcies aren't properly listed on there. Maybe a franchisee, maybe a group of franchisees are just upset because they felt like they were sold something, and then when they got into a system, it was completely different than what was advertised to them. Thinking about the franchisee in that mindset in this moment, what is there for them to actually do? Do they have any opportunity to maybe get out of the agreement, do some sort of arbitration, get some funds back from the franchisor? Like, is that a thing? Are they just in hot water? What can somebody expect, and kind of set their mindset on what's the proper path forward to maybe rectify a situation and not have to go all the way to Chapter 7 bankruptcy or something like that?
So I think if you're in a situation where you're a franchisee and you're stuck in a situation where you've signed a franchise agreement that's usually a 10-year term, you're committed to a lot of money, you've put a large amount of your capital investment into this, and you really need to succeed. For the most part, people are buying into a franchise to replace their other W-2 earning income, and now they're their own boss, and they need to be making money in this concept. So a lot of the franchise disclosure documents or the franchise agreements, everyone knows that they're very one-sided. It's tough to negotiate a lot of the key
Sure.
provisions. I think it's one of the things that you understand for the most part as a franchisee buying into it, that this agreement uh, is not really in the favor of a franchisee if things go south. Now, there is some things that you can negotiate to provide some downside protection and provide some outs with minimizing how much you've lost if things were to go south. But I've seen it all depends, like on a case by case basis, whether if it's a scenario where the brand materially misrepresented something, obviously you can go after the brand and try to sue them and try to recover money that you've invested into the concept, try to recover the initial franchise fee. Some of the times you could be in a position where you're struggling just to break even. The franchisor isn't happy with how you're doing because you're a low performing store, and it could make sense just to negotiate uh, with the franchisor to almost a buyout to go your separate ways. You may have to pay a fee to get out of the agreement, or if the franchisor is in the wrong, they may have to be the ones that are paying a fee to avoid litigation and pursuing any further damages. And I've seen that where a lot of people buy into the concept, things go south, you agree to separate, you go your separate ways. Obviously, as the franchisee, you have to rebrand your concept. Say you go open an acai bowl spot. You've already invested into the equipment and the build out, so you could turn around and sell all that and make some money back on your investment, but there's a good chance that you're just not happy with the franchisor support. You still want to go run your business. If you go your separate ways with the franchisor, you'll have to rebrand, come up with your own concept, and it could work out better for you that way. So I think there's ways that you can try to negotiate with the franchisor. If they're in the wrong, it could make sense to pursue litigation, try to recover some more money. But sometimes it's just good to part ways and just everyone cut their losses and move on.
Yeah, no, it's a sad thing to hear about. It happens, but I think a lot of that becomes with the preparation on the front end. And so, in your experience, say we use the acai bowl example, is there ever a non-compete? Can I still sell acai bowls on the back end even after I completely rebrand, separate, build out my own, brand, but I got all the equipment? Is it typically I can still sell acai bowls if I'm able to get out of that agreement?
You typically that would be part of the
That would be
negotiations.
part of it. Okay.
So it would say that you're allowed to go continue on because the franchise agreement's going to say that there's a non-compete. Usually,
Sure.
there's a 2-year non-compete within
Sure.
a certain radius. So part of like the negotiation uh, would be trying to allow the franchisee to continue on with their business. It's all really fact specific. If the franchisee's at fault, the franchisor is not going to want to agree to that. Like if you just
Yeah.
set up a bad franchisee, if you're the franchisor, you're going to be like, no, like you need to leave. You kind of have our playbook already. Like we don't want you to stay put, like, and just change your name. Like, this could hurt our business. Like, if we want to go put our own acai bowl concept in, so it could just, you may want to enforce the non-compete if it's the franchise or franchisee at fault. So that's got to be negotiated as part of like the settlement.
Very interesting. Okay, so what are some things? Let's pause. Let's flip it. Let's have a proactive approach now. What are some things on the front end that both parties can do, franchisor and franchisee, to avoid any of this stuff from actually happening?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing working on the franchisor side is you want to work with good franchisees. If you find unqualified franchisees, you're just causing more headaches for yourself. Uh, it it's going to, and they, okay, we're going to vet these people. They're buying in for the right reasons. They have experience, whether it's in the food industry, if they're buying into a food concept, or if they don't have experience, they have XYZ other experience that they'll be able to learn. And we trust these people to really buy into our system. So I think the franchisor, you want to limit exposure by finding the right franchisees. As a franchisee, you want to buy into the right concept and brands. It's not always easy to go buy into a legacy brand that may have no
Sure.
territories left. So there's definitely a lot of good opportunities for newer brands out there. And as new trends and concepts pop up, you have a good opportunity to get into something early and get a large territory if the goal is to expand. That can be a benefit. But I think the biggest thing, if you're a franchisee, when we're viewing a potential franchise investment, is the experience of the franchisor. Obviously, you're taking on more of a risk if a franchisor has no other franchisees in the system. You're basically a guinea pig for them. You're going to be one of their first franchisees. You're likely investing a similar amount of money into that concept that you would have invested into a concept that is more mature and has been around for over a decade. So you got to ask yourself, like, why am I investing the same amount of money in a concept that is brand new versus an established concept? And you could have the right reasons in your head. It could be that the new concept is led by other franchise professionals that have experience in the space, that you really believe in what they're building and the vision that they have for the brand. But I think a lot of times when I'm reviewing a franchise agreement, I'm not necessarily trying to talk anyone out of it. It's stating the facts out there. If you review like the item 2 of who these people are, if they don't have experience, how do you trust that they're going to guide you and train you the right way? So I think it's a risk analysis of, okay, like, if this is a new emerging concept, this makes sense from the risk perspective because of the experience that these people bring to the table, that we believe that they're gonna be successful. Versus if you buy into a more established brand, there may be some less risk involved. But in any established brand, you wanna still do your due diligence, make sure that franchisees are succeeding in the system, that people aren't going bankrupt, closing their stores down. So make sure you're going to set yourself up for success.
That's good, man. And I think there's a ton of value in that. And I would imagine that as long as franchisees are not going bankrupt in droves, there's probably some wiggle room and grace built into what the FDD has in it, versus if franchisees are going out of business and going bankrupt in droves to where multiple people are upset, your FDD might be scrutinized a little bit more on the back end. My last question on this frame of reference, and I didn't think about this on the front end, but oftentimes we talk about the unit economics and the financials that are being told to franchisees verbally in the investigation process versus what's actually in the FDD, and how if there's a discrepancy there, that could be what gets a franchisor in trouble. What about that item 2, the experience of the franchisor and the team? What if the item 2 says one thing, but then what's told to the franchisee verbally in investigation is something completely different? Obviously, the franchisee would have to prove that they were given false expectations on the experience of the franchisor, but is that held to the same scrutiny under law as the financial representations Does that question make sense?
No, that makes total sense. And yeah, same thing. If you're materially misrepresenting the experience of people in item two, that's a huge red flag. And I've seen that pop up where people are either deliberately leaving out other companies they're involved with. Like item two, you're supposed to include for the past 3 years the every like concept that you have ownership in. It may not be a franchise related thing. Like say you have a business on the side that is a consulting company, you need to disclose that if you have a side business. What if that consulting company is bankrupt? You would want to know that as a prospective investor, that the person who is the CEO, COO of this franchise company also has a side company that's bankrupt. So yeah, by leaving things out about experience or inflating the actual experience that someone has, that could definitely be something that is at issue and can be brought up, whether it's in a lawsuit or an issue with the FTC with materially misrepresenting something.
Super interesting, man. I want to respect your time. You've given me so much value here and to the audience. I appreciate you so much. What did I miss? I mean, is there anything that, maybe you thought we were going to hit on that I didn't ask you because I got caught up in one of the things? I told you beforehand, this was going to be super organic. We're just going to have a conversation, and man, you came with it. I appreciate you. What I miss, man? What else you got?
We could probably talk about this for hours. There's so many
Facts.
This flew by for real, but I appreciate you having me on. And I mean, I think there's so many layers to the franchise world.
Yes.
There's a lot of ways you can win in the industry, and I think to kind of summarize what we talked about, like we want to stay compliant, don't make false promises as a franchisor that you can't uphold, and as a franchisee, you definitely want to surround yourself with a good team of people and do your due diligence before making an investment decision. So yeah, I'm happy to like kind of leave the audience with my info. I'm sure like in you'll drop it in the bio and everything.
Yeah, come on.
You can find me on social media at Josh Goldberg on LinkedIn. I am Josh Goldberg across all other social media channels. I work here in Miami at a full service law firm where I practice both franchise and sports law. And as we were talking about earlier in the podcast, there's a good crossover between the two and lots of opportunities, whether you're a franchisor or a franchisee, to tap into the sports space to leverage your business and continue to scale.
Awesome, man. Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Goldberg, you heard him here on the Streetwise podcast. Reach out to him on LinkedIn, any of the other platforms if you got any questions regarding sports law, franchise law. This guy's got a wealth of knowledge, and we got a ton of value from you today, my friend. Thank you so much for joining. To the listener, man, like this one twice, share it with a friend, send it to somebody, give it a review. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace. All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hey, if this episode added any value to your life at all, please like it, share it, give me a 5-star review. It's the only way that this show is going to gain traction and help more people achieve their dreams. If you're ready to start your franchise journey, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's set up a time to talk. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.